The Nevada desert held its breath in the strange suspended hour between midnight and dawn. The city of Reno sprawled below the foothills like a circuit board of neon and desperation, its casinos pumping light into the darkness as if daring the stars to compete. But up here, in the pine-studded ridges of Mount Rose, the air was clean and cold, sharp enough to cut glass. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Kane sat on the weathered deck of a rental cabin, a mug of black coffee cooling in his hands. He wasn't drinking it. He was just holding it, feeling its weight, using it as an anchor to the present moment. At his feet, a small German Shepherd puppy, maybe 4 months old, dozed fitfully, her oversized paws twitching as she dreamed. Marcus watched the dog with an expression that hadn't changed in 20 minutes, calm, observant, and profoundly empty. His face was a landscape of controlled erosion, strong jawline, high cheekbones, skin weathered to bronze by years under hostile suns. A faded scar ran from his left eyebrow into his hairline, the kind of mark that came from shrapnel, not accidents. His eyes, a startling pale blue against his tan, held the peculiar stillness of deep water. He was on mandatory leave. 72 hours ago, he'd been breathing the dust of Helmand Province. 48 hours ago, he'd been sitting across from a Navy psychologist who kept asking him how he felt about losing his K9 partner. 12 hours ago, he'd driven up this mountain to escape the noise of the city, only to discover that silence was worse. The puppy, he'd found her yesterday, shivering behind a gas station dumpster, too young to be alone, shifted and pressed closer to his boot. She wasn't his dog. He wasn't keeping her. Tomorrow he'd take her to a shelter, find her a proper home. But tonight she was warm and alive, and that was enough to keep the ghosts at bay. CTA Der 250 words in. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The pine trees whispered in the pre-dawn wind. Marcus closed his eyes, not to sleep, but to listen. This was the exercise the psychologist had prescribed. Find peaceful sounds. Ground yourself in the present. Remember what it feels like to be safe. But his mind kept circling back to Titan, his MWD, military working dog, a 90-pound Belgian Malinois who'd saved his life in 7 different firefights and died doing it an 8th time. The IED that should have taken Marcus's legs had instead vaporized the dog who'd been 3 steps ahead, doing his job, protecting his handler. The paperwork said Marcus had walked away without a scratch. The paperwork was a liar. The puppy whimpered in her sleep, and Marcus reached down instinctively, his large, calloused hand settling gently on her small head. She quieted immediately, some ancient canine instinct recognizing the touch of a protector. "You're safe," he murmured, his voice a low rumble barely audible over the wind. "I've got you." The irony wasn't lost on him. He couldn't save Titan. He couldn't save the 3 men from his unit who'd gone home in flag-draped boxes. But maybe he could save one small abandoned puppy. It wasn't redemption, but it was a start. Marcus hadn't always been this way, comfortable with silence, allergic to crowds, seeing threats in every shadow. There was a before. A time when he laughed easily, when sleep came without nightmares, when dogs were just dogs and not brothers in arms. That was before Titan. The memory came unbidden, as it always did in quiet moments. The compound outside Kandahar, the intel about a high-value target, the pre-dawn insertion. Titan had been on point. His nose the most sophisticated IED detector ever created. Better than any machine, any robot. 85 pounds of Belgian Malinois with a drive so intense he'd work until his paws bled. They'd been partners for 3 years, longer than some marriages. Marcus knew every signal in Titan's body language, the stiffening of his spine that meant explosives detected, the slight head tilt that meant movement ahead, the relaxed panting that meant, all clear, boss, we're good. That morning, Titan had alerted 30 yards from the compound wall. He'd sat, the universal K9 signal for danger, and looked back at Marcus with those intelligent amber eyes. There's something here. Trust me. Marcus had trusted him. He'd called the halt, started the protocol for clearing the IED, but the insurgents had gotten smarter. They'd daisy-chained 2 devices, one that Titan found, one that Titan couldn't. The second bomb was pressure-triggered, designed to detonate when the bomb squad approached the first device. Titan had stepped on it while Marcus was 10 feet back, coordinating the team. The explosion was small, shaped charge meant to kill the dog and demoralize the handler. It worked. Titan was gone before Marcus could reach him, before he could say goodbye, before he could tell his partner one last time. Good boy, you did good. The team had completed the mission, killed the HVT, secured the compound, came home heroes. Marcus had received a commendation. Titan had received a memorial service and a folded flag that Marcus kept in a box he couldn't bear to open. The Navy psychiatrist, a kind woman with patient eyes, had asked him why he thought he was having trouble adjusting. Marcus had stared at her, wondering how to explain that he'd lost the one creature who'd trusted him completely, who'd followed him into hell without question, who'd died doing exactly what Marcus had trained him to do. It's not PTSD, he'd finally said. It's grief. There's a difference. Grief can be just as debilitating, she'd replied. You need time. You need space. You need to remember that Titan's death wasn't your fault. But it was. Marcus had given the command. Marcus had chosen the approach route. Marcus had trained Titan to find bombs, which meant training him to be near bombs, which meant training him to die. The puppy at his feet, Echo, shifted in her sleep, chasing rabbits in her dreams. She was nothing like Titan. She was small, uncertain, still figuring out where her paws went. She would never be a military working dog. She didn't have the drive, the intensity, the controlled aggression. But maybe that was better. Maybe Marcus needed to protect something that wasn't trained to run toward danger. Maybe he needed to save something that would just live. I'm sorry, buddy, Marcus whispered into the darkness, speaking to a ghost that never answered. I'm so damn sorry. Echo woke up, sensing his distress, and crawled into his lap. She licked his hand once, twice, and settled against his chest. It wasn't forgiveness. Dogs don't forgive because dogs don't judge. It was just presence, just warmth, just life saying, I'm here, you're not alone. And, for now, that was enough. 40 miles away, in the service corridors beneath the gilded Fortune Casino, Maria Santos pushed her cleaning cart with the mechanical precision of a woman who'd learned to make herself invisible. She was 31 years old, though her face, drawn and shadowed with exhaustion, could have belonged to someone a decade older. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her olive-green janitorial uniform hung loose on her small frame. She'd lost weight over the past 6 months. Food had become an afterthought, something to be managed between shifts rather than enjoyed. The corridor smelled of industrial cleaner and stale cigarette smoke. Above her, the casino floor thrummed with the muted cacophony of slot machines and drunken laughter. Down here, in the warren of maintenance tunnels and storage rooms, it was quiet. That was why she preferred the graveyard shift. That, and the fact that her supervisor rarely checked on her during these hours. Maria stopped at a storage alcove and carefully unlatched a pet carrier hidden behind a stack of industrial mop heads. A small nose immediately pressed against the mesh door, followed by a soft, hopeful whine. "Hola, mi amor," Maria whispered, opening the carrier. A Chihuahua mix, barely 6 pounds of caramel-colored fur and enormous brown eyes, scrambled into her arms, trembling with relief and joy. This was Luna, her only family, her entire world compressed into 5 pounds of anxious, fiercely loyal dog. Maria had found Luna 3 years ago, abandoned in an alley behind her apartment building. The vet said Luna had been abused. Her back legs bore the scars of cigarette burns, and she cowered at sudden movements. But with Maria, Luna was brave. With Maria, she was safe. The casino's employee handbook strictly forbade pets in the building. Maria knew this, but 6 months ago, when her apartment building had been condemned and she'd been forced into her car, she'd had no choice. She couldn't afford a deposit on a new place. Not with the crushing medical debt from her mother's cancer treatment still hanging over her. And she absolutely could not surrender Luna to a shelter. So she brought the dog to work, hidden in the carrier, stashed in forgotten corners while Maria cleaned. It was a desperate solution, but Maria had become an expert in desperate solutions. She held Luna close for a stolen moment, feeling the dog's rapid heartbeat against her chest. "Just a few more weeks," she promised in Spanish. "I almost have enough saved. Then we'll have a real home again." Luna licked her chin, and for a brief, fragile second, Maria smiled. The elevator at the end of the corridor opened with a mechanical chime that shattered the peace. Maria's head snapped up, her heart lurching into her throat. No one used this elevator at 3 a.m. No one should be down here. She quickly tucked Luna back into the carrier and shoved it behind the mops, her hands shaking. Heavy footsteps approached, accompanied by voices, loud, aggressive, slurred with alcohol and arrogance. Victor Castellano emerged from the corridor's gloom like a shark cutting through dark water. He was the owner of the Gilded Fortune, a man whose name appeared on billboards and political donation lists. In his early 50s, Victor had the physique of a former athlete gone soft. His expensive suit stretched tight across a gut that spoke of lavish dinners and bottomless cocktails. His face was flushed, his eyes glassy but sharp, predatory. He was flanked by 2 men who wore the uniform of expensive mediocrity, tailored shirts, designer watches, the kind of smirks that came from never being told no. These were his inner circle: Brent, his casino manager, and Derek, his head of security. "This place is a dump," Victor was saying, gesturing expansively at the service corridor. "I'm paying a fortune for cleaning staff, and it still looks like a goddamn prison." "We can fire the night crew," Brent suggested, his voice unctuous. "Hire cheaper." "We hire cheaper. We get illegals who don't speak English," Derek said. "Then we've got liability issues." "Then we hire people who are grateful for the work," Victor snapped. "People who don't—" He stopped. His eyes had landed on Maria, who had frozen beside her cart like a rabbit in headlights. "You," Victor said, pointing at her. "What's your name?" Maria's throat closed. "Maria, senor. Maria Santos. You speak English?" His tone was mocking, cruel. "Yes, sir. This corridor's disgusting," Victor interrupted, gesturing at the spotless floor. "You call this clean?" Maria looked down at the gleaming linoleum, confusion flickering across her face. "Sir, I just finished. Are you arguing with me?" Victor took a step closer, and Maria could smell the bourbon on his breath, see the cold calculation behind his drunken performance. He was bored, she realized with sickening clarity. He was drunk and bored, and looking for someone to humiliate. She was convenient. "No, sir," Maria whispered, dropping her gaze. "I'll clean it again." "Damn right you will." Victor turned to his companions. "This is what I'm talking about. No pride, no work ethic, just going through the motions." Brent laughed, the sound oily and complicit. "Want me to write her up?" From the storage alcove, barely audible, came a soft, muffled whine. Victor's head turned slowly, his eyes narrowing. What was that? Maria's blood turned to ice. "Nothing, sir. Just the ventilation system. It makes noise sometimes." Another whine, slightly louder. Luna had heard the voices, sensed Maria's fear. Victor walked toward the alcove, his expensive shoes clicking on the tile. That didn't sound like ventilation. "Sir, please." Maria moved to block his path, a mouse trying to stop a tank. Victor shoved her aside with casual violence, sending her stumbling into her cart. He yanked aside the mop heads and pulled out the carrier. Through the mesh, Luna's terrified eyes stared back at him. "Well, well," Victor said softly, dangerously. "What do we have here?" The corridor, which moments before had been merely tense, suddenly felt like a trap snapping shut. Victor Castellano held the carrier up to eye level, examining Luna the way a sadistic child might examine an insect before pulling off its wings. "A dog," he said, his voice dripping with theatrical disbelief. "You brought a dog into my casino." "Sir, please," Maria begged, scrambling to her feet. "She's not hurting anything. She stays in the carrier. She's quiet. I swear she—" "You swear?" Victor's face twisted into an ugly mask of rage. "You think your swearing means anything to me? You're violating health codes. You're violating casino policy. You're stealing from me, bringing your filthy pet on company time." "I'm not stealing." Maria's voice cracked. "I work every minute of my shift. I have nowhere else to keep her. I'm living in my car and—" "Not my problem," Victor said. He rattled the carrier viciously, making Luna yelp in terror. "Your sob story isn't my problem. Your inability to follow simple rules isn't my problem." Brent stepped forward, his phone out. "Want me to call animal control? They'll take it to the pound." The pound. Maria knew what that meant for a scared, scarred, unadoptable Chihuahua mix. It meant a needle and a trash bag within 72 hours. "No!" Maria lunged for the carrier, her desperation overriding her fear. "Please, she's all I have. Please don't." Victor's free hand snapped out and connected with Maria's face in a backhanded slap that echoed through the corridor like a gunshot. The force of the blow sent her spinning, her cheek exploding in a supernova of pain. She hit the wall and crumpled, her vision swimming with stars and tears. "Don't you ever touch me," Victor hissed. He looked down at the woman bleeding from her split lip, and his expression was one of pure contempt. "You're done. You're fired. And this thing—" He turned and walked toward the industrial garbage chute. Victor Castellano had built his empire on a simple principle. Weakness was contemptible, and the weak deserved whatever they got. He'd learned it from his father, who'd learned it from his father, a lineage of bullies stretching back to the old country where the Castellano name meant fear. His cousin Anthony ran the family's criminal enterprises with violence and intimidation. Victor had chosen the legitimate route: casinos, real estate, political donations, but the philosophy was the same. The world was divided into predators and prey. If you weren't one, you were the other. Maria Santos was prey. He'd known it the moment he hired her, saw it in the way she kept her head down, the way she apologized for things that weren't her fault, the way she flinched when men raised their voices. She was a victim by nature, he'd thought. Someone had hurt her before, and she'd learned to accept it. People like that made Victor feel powerful. They reminded him that he was the apex predator in his domain. He could fire them, humiliate them, crush them, and they would just take it, because they had no choice, because they needed the job more than they needed their dignity. The dog was just an extension of that, a violation of his rules, proof that Maria thought she could get away with something, and Victor couldn't allow that. The moment you let the prey think they had options, the moment you let them believe they deserved mercy, you lost control. So he'd hit her. Not hard enough to cause permanent damage. He wasn't a monster, he told himself, just hard enough to remind her of her place. And the dog, well, the dog was a lesson, a demonstration. You break the rules in my casino, I break what you love. He expected her to beg. He expected her to grovel. That was how this always went. The weak pleaded, the strong decided, and the world continued spinning. What he didn't expect was the man in the shadows. What he didn't expect was someone who didn't flinch. What he didn't expect was consequence. At the end of the corridor, the kind used for disposing of bulk casino waste. It was a straight drop, 5 stories down into a compactor. Is going where it belongs. Maria's scream was primal, a sound torn from the depths of her soul. No, please, no. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't hold her. She crawled instead, her hands scraping against the floor, blood dripping from her mouth. Victor opened the chute door. The mechanical groan of the compactor below rumbled up like the growl of some subterranean monster. Luna was shrieking inside the carrier, throwing herself against the mesh in a frantic attempt to escape. "Say goodbye to your rat," Victor said, and he threw the carrier into the chute. Maria's scream joined Luna's as the carrier tumbled into the darkness. The sound of it hitting metal, bouncing, the crunch of the compactor starting its cycle. These were sounds that would haunt her forever. She collapsed fully then, her face pressed against the cold floor, sobs racking her body so violently she couldn't breathe. The world had ended. Everything that mattered was gone, crushed into garbage 5 stories below. Victor brushed his hands together with theatrical finality. "Get her out of here," he told Derek. "She doesn't work here anymore." He turned and walked back toward the elevator, whistling tunelessly, already forgetting the woman and the dog he'd just destroyed. But he had been wrong about one thing. The corridor wasn't empty. In the shadowed recess near the service stairs, where he'd been checking a faulty breaker box, Marcus Kane stood perfectly still. He'd been there for the entire exchange. He'd seen everything, and the switch inside him, the one that separated the man from the weapon, had just flipped to armed. Marcus didn't move immediately. Movement without purpose was wasted energy. Instead, he did what he'd been trained to do: assess, analyze, execute. Target 1, Victor Castellano, primary aggressor, approximately 6'1", 220 pounds, soft around the middle, drunk, arrogant, believed himself untouchable. Target 2, Brent, secondary threat, smaller, faster, but complicit, would follow Victor's lead. Target 3, Derek, head of security, the only real threat, military haircut, tactical stance, hand resting near where a concealed carry would be. Asset, Maria Santos. Non-combatant, injured, traumatized. Currently no threat to herself or others, but in profound psychological shock. Mission objective: extract the dog, secure the woman, neutralize the threats without lethal force. Time to execute now. Marcus stepped out of the shadows. He didn't announce himself. He didn't shout. He simply walked forward with the unhurried, inevitable pace of a landslide. Victor had just pressed the elevator button when he became aware of the presence behind him. He turned, annoyed, expecting another janitor. Instead, he found himself looking at a man who didn't belong in his casino. Marcus was dressed in the civilian uniform of the Invisible. Dark jeans, a black thermal shirt, weathered boots. But there was nothing civilian about the way he held himself. He was coiled tension wrapped in deliberate calm, a predator that had decided to stop hiding. "The dog," Marcus said. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the corridor with the authority of a judge pronouncing sentence. "Where's the compactor?" Victor blinked, his bourbon-soaked brain struggling to process this new development. "Who the hell are you?" "The compactor," Marcus repeated, not raising his voice. "Where?" "This is private property," Derek said, stepping forward, his hand moving toward his waistband. "You need to leave. Now." Marcus's eyes flicked to Derek, a millisecond assessment, and dismissed him as a threat. The man had the stance, but not the stillness. He was mall security playing soldier. "I'm not leaving without the dog," Marcus said. On the floor, Maria lifted her head, her tear-streaked face a mask of confusion and desperate hope. "She's gone," she choked out. "The compactor, she's already—" "Not yet," Marcus said. He'd heard it. The mechanical grinding had stopped after only one cycle. The system was programmed for larger loads. One small carrier wouldn't have triggered a full crush. There was a chance. He started walking toward the access door that led to the waste management level. Victor stepped into his path, puffing up with the absurd confidence of a man who'd never been truly challenged. "I don't know who you think you are, but you're about 5 seconds from being arrested for trespassing. Derek, call." Marcus didn't break stride. He simply placed his hand, palm open, no aggression, on Victor's chest and moved him aside as if he weighed nothing. Victor stumbled, his eyes widening in shock. "Did you just put your hands on me?" "The dog," Marcus said again, reaching the access door and pulling it open. A metal staircase descended into darkness, the smell of garbage and motor oil rising up. "Grab him!" Victor shrieked. "Derek, grab him!" Derek moved, reaching for Marcus's shoulder. Marcus didn't even turn around. His hand shot up and caught Derek's wrist mid-reach with a grip like a vice. He applied pressure, precise, clinical, devastating, to the radial nerve cluster. Derek's knees buckled, a strangled gasp escaping his lips. "Don't," Marcus said quietly, releasing him. Derek collapsed against the wall, cradling his numb arm. Marcus descended into the darkness. The compactor room was a cathedral of industrial brutality, all steel and shadows, lit by a single flickering fluorescent tube. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the floor was slick with fluids Marcus chose not to identify. The compactor itself was a massive hydraulic beast, currently silent, its metal jaws open. Garbage was piled in the hopper, waiting for the next cycle. And there, wedged at an angle between a torn garbage bag and a broken chair, was the carrier. Marcus could see movement inside. The dog was alive. He didn't hesitate. He climbed into the hopper, his boots finding purchase on the unstable pile. The carrier was just out of reach. He stretched, his fingers brushing the handle. Behind him, the access door slammed open. Victor's voice echoed through the chamber. "I'm going to sue you into the ground. I'm going to have you arrested. Do you know who I am?" Marcus grabbed the carrier and pulled it free. Inside, Luna was pressed into the corner, trembling violently but alive. One of her paws was bleeding where the mesh had cut her during the fall, but she was whole. He climbed out of the hopper, cradling the carrier against his chest, and turned to face the three men who'd followed him down. Victor was purple with rage, Brent was on his phone, and Derek had recovered enough to draw his weapon, a compact Glock 43, held in a textbook grip. "Put the dog down and get on your knees," Derek commanded, his voice trying for authority but landing somewhere near panic. "Now!" Marcus looked at the gun, then at Derek's eyes, reading the truth there. This man didn't want to shoot. He wanted to seem like he might shoot. There was a universe of difference. "You're not going to fire that weapon," Marcus said calmly, setting the carrier down gently behind him, positioning his body between it and the threat. "This is a casino. Discharge report means police. Police means questions. Questions mean someone's going to wonder why your boss just assaulted an employee and tried to kill her dog." Derek's gun hand wavered. Marcus saw it and knew he'd already won this fight. It just hadn't manifested in reality yet. Victor, drunk and stupid, didn't see it. "Shoot him!" Victor screamed. "He's trespassing. He's threatening us. It's self-defense." "I haven't threatened anyone," Marcus said, his voice a flat monotone. "I rescued a dog from your trash compactor. If that's threatening—" He let the sentence hang, the implications obvious. Brent lowered his phone. "Victor, maybe we should—" "Maybe we should what?" Victor whirled on him. "Let this nobody walk into my casino and disrespect me? Let that thief—" He pointed up toward where Maria still lay. "Get away with violating policy?" "She didn't violate anything worth this," Marcus said, and for the first time there was an edge to his voice. Not anger, something colder. "You hit her, you threw her dog into a trash compactor, and you think you're the victim here." "I'm the owner," Victor spat. "I can do whatever I want in my building." "No," Marcus said quietly. "You can't." Victor's face twisted. He'd built an empire on intimidation, on the fundamental belief that money and power meant he never had to hear the word no. This stranger, this nobody, was refusing to acknowledge the natural order. It was intolerable. "Derek," Victor said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, "if you don't stop this man, you're fired." Derek's gun hand steadied, fear of unemployment overriding fear of consequences. Marcus saw the shift, saw the moment the man decided to commit, and the corridor behind them suddenly filled with light and the crackle of a radio. "Security to level B3. We have reports of a weapon drawn." More footfalls, more voices. Marcus picked up the carrier, turned his back on the three men, an act of supreme, calculated disrespect, and walked toward the stairs. "This isn't over," Victor screamed after him. "You're done. I'll have you arrested. Marcus stopped at the base of the stairs and looked back. His expression hadn't changed. Still calm, still empty. But his eyes held something that made Victor's next threat die in his throat. "I'm staying at the Mountain Rose Cabins," Marcus said quietly. "Cabin 7. You know where to find me." It wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. And then he was gone, climbing the stairs, the carrier held carefully, the injured dog inside whimpering softly as she began, slowly, to understand she was safe. Marcus carried the carrier up 4 flights of service stairs, moving with steady, unhurried purpose. Behind him, he could hear the chaos erupting. Victor screaming orders, security radios crackling, footsteps pounding. He ignored all of it. The mission was extraction. Everything else was noise. He emerged into a side corridor near the casino's employee break room. Maria was there, being helped to her feet by another janitor, an older woman whose name tag read Rosa. Maria's face was a mess of blood and tears, her split lip still bleeding. But when she saw Marcus carrying the carrier, her eyes went wide. "Luna," she whispered, the word half prayer, half question. Marcus set the carrier down and opened the door. The small Chihuahua mix scrambled out, limping on her injured paw, and launched herself into Maria's arms. The reunion was instant, visceral. Maria collapsed to her knees, sobbing into the dog's fur, while Luna licked frantically at her face, whining and trembling. "She's okay," Marcus said quietly to Rosa. "Cut paw, probably bruised, but she'll heal. Get them out of here. Is there a back exit?" Rosa nodded, her eyes sharp with understanding. "Loading dock, through the kitchen." "Use it, now." "Wait." Maria looked up at him, her eyes red and swollen. Who are you?" "Someone who doesn't like bullies," Marcus said. He reached into his wallet and pulled out $300 bills, a week's worth of per diem he hadn't touched. He pressed them into Rosa's hand. "Get her to a doctor, then a vet, then somewhere Victor Castellano can't find her." "But Maria started. "No buts." Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. "You're fired," he said it. "You heard witnesses. That means you're free. Take the dog, take the money, start over somewhere else." The elevator at the end of the corridor chimed. Victor's voice echoed. "Find them! Find that man and that woman! I want them both arrested!" Marcus turned to face the approaching storm. "Go," he told Maria and Rosa. "Now." They went. Marcus stood alone in the corridor as Victor Castellano rounded the corner, flanked by 6 security guards in ill-fitting uniforms. Derek was with them, still cradling his numb arm, his face a mask of humiliation and rage. Victor stopped 10 feet away, breathing hard, his expensive suit rumpled and stained with garbage residue from his trip to the compactor room. "You," he snarled, pointing a shaking finger. "You're done. You're finished. I'm pressing charges. Assault, trespassing, theft." "Theft?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Of garbage. That's what you threw the dog away as. Garbage. Can't steal garbage." One of the security guards, a younger man who looked distinctly uncomfortable, shifted his weight. "Mr. Castellano, maybe we should just let him leave. He got the dog out. No real harm done." "No harm?" Victor's voice climbed to a shriek. "He assaulted my head of security. He threatened me. I haven't assaulted anyone," Marcus said calmly. "I touched your chest to move past you. I applied a pressure point to stop your guard from grabbing me. Neither action caused injury. Neither was aggressive. Both were defensive." "Liar!" Victor lunged forward, his hands outstretched, going for Marcus's throat in a move born of pure, alcohol-fueled rage. Marcus didn't want this, didn't want to hurt a civilian, even a monstrous one. But Victor had made his choice. The technique Marcus used was called an arm drag, simple, fundamental, taught in the first week of basic combatives training. As Victor's hands reached for his throat, Marcus stepped to the side, grabbed Victor's right wrist with his left hand and Victor's right elbow with his right hand, and simply redirected all that forward momentum. Victor, expecting resistance, found none. He stumbled forward, completely off balance, and Marcus helped him along, guiding him face first into the wall with a meaty thunk that echoed through the corridor. Victor bounced off the drywall and collapsed onto his hands and knees, blood streaming from his nose, his eyes glazed with shock and pain. The security guards froze. They'd just watched their boss, the man who signed their paychecks, get put down like a drunk at closing time, by a man who hadn't even broken a sweat. Marcus looked at them, his expression unchanged. "Anyone else?" 5 of the 6 guards took a step back. The 6th, Derek, reached for his weapon. "Don't," Marcus said, and there was something in his voice that made it less a warning and more a prophecy. Derek's hand stopped halfway to his holster. He'd seen combat. Iraq, maybe Afghanistan, and he recognized what he was looking at, a stone-cold operator who'd gone through doors in Fallujah or Kandahar, who'd made hard calls in dark places, who would absolutely, without hesitation, take that gun away and use it on him if he completed the draw. Derek's hand fell to his side. "Smart man," Marcus said. The standoff might have lasted forever, or at least until the Reno PD showed up, if not for the voice that cut through the tension like a scalpel. "Marcus Kane? Marcus fucking Kane? Is that you?" Everyone turned. A man was pushing through the small crowd that had gathered, casino patrons and staff drawn by the commotion. He was in his 50s, graying, with the leathery skin of someone who'd spent decades in the sun. He wore a Harley-Davidson jacket and a smile of pure, disbelieving joy. "Gunny?" Marcus's expression shifted, just barely, just for a second, into something that might have been surprise. "Holy shit, it is you." The man, Gunnery Sergeant Mike Torres, USMC retired, according to the patch on his jacket, grabbed Marcus in a bear hug that would have crushed a smaller man. "What the hell are you doing in Reno? Last I heard, you were still downrange with Team 5. "Medical leave," Marcus said, extricating himself from the embrace. "Torres, this isn't—" Wait. Torres held up his hands, his grin widening as he took in the scene. Marcus standing calm and unruffled, Victor on the floor bleeding, 6 security guards looking like they'd just seen a ghost. "Did I just walk in on you handing someone their ass?" "It's complicated," Marcus said. "It always is with you, brother." Torres turned to the security guards. "Any of you boys know who you're messing with?" Silence. Torres's grin turned shark-like. "This man right here is Lieutenant Commander Marcus Kane, U.S. Navy SEALs. 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq, Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, Purple Heart. He's got more confirmed kills than you have paychecks, and he once dragged 4 wounded Marines through a minefield under fire because their exfil got shot down." Victor, still on the floor, made a strange wheezing sound. "SEALs?" one of the younger guards whispered. "That's not possible," Derek said, but his voice had lost all its certainty. "SEALs don't just walk around casinos." "We walk around wherever we want, dipshit," Torres said cheerfully. "We just usually do it quietly, which means if Marcus here made himself visible, someone really pissed him off." He looked at Victor. "What did you do?" This is my casino," Victor stammered, his bravado hemorrhaging out with his nosebleed. "He has no right. He hit a woman," Marcus said quietly, backhanded her hard enough to split her lip. Then he threw her dog into a trash compactor. I retrieved the dog. He attempted to assault me. I defended myself. The temperature in the corridor dropped 20 degrees. Torres's smile vanished. "He did what to a dog." "You heard me." Torres turned to Victor with an expression of absolute contempt. "You're a piece of shit, you know that? You can't talk to me like—" Victor tried to stand, wobbling. Torres stepped forward and casually pushed him back down. "Stay down. Trust me, it's safer." He looked at the security guards. "Any of you actually want to arrest a Navy SEAL for stopping animal cruelty and defending himself?" More silence. Then, one by one, the guards shook their heads. "Thought so." Torres turned back to Marcus. "You need an exfil?" "I was planning to walk out the front door," Marcus said. "Bet you were." Torres clapped him on the shoulder. "Come on, I'm parked out front. We'll grab a beer. You can tell me how you ended up playing Captain America in a Nevada casino." They started walking. Behind them, Victor finally found his voice. "This isn't over. I'll sue. I'll have your career destroyed. I know people, senators, judges, the governor." Marcus stopped. He turned, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "You hit a woman. You tried to kill her dog. 50 people saw it. And in about 6 hours, when she files her police report, all your friends in high places won't be able to help you." He paused. "But if you're stupid enough to come after me—" He let the sentence hang, unfinished. He didn't need to finish. The message was clear. Torres and Marcus walked through the casino floor, past the slot machines and card tables, past the late-night gamblers and cocktail waitresses. By the time they reached the front doors, Marcus's phone was already buzzing with texts from Maria. "Thank you. Luna is safe. We're going to my cousin's in Arizona. Thank you. God bless you." Outside, in the cool pre-dawn air, Torres lit a cigarette and studied his old friend. "You okay, brother? You seem tight." "I'm on psych leave," Marcus admitted. "Lost my K9 partner, Titan, 2 months ago." Torres winced. "Shit. I'm sorry, man. That's rough." "Yeah." Marcus looked up at the sky, the stars fading as the sun threatened the horizon. "I came out here to figure out how to turn off the switch, how to stop seeing missions everywhere. And instead, you found one?" "Yeah." Torres took a drag, exhaled slowly. "You saved the girl and the dog?" "Yeah." "Teach a rich asshole that money doesn't make you bulletproof?" "Yeah." "Then I'd say the switch is working just fine, brother." Torres clapped him on the shoulder again. "You're not broken, Marcus. You're just wired to protect. That's not a bug. That's a feature." Marcus didn't respond. But as he climbed into his truck and drove back toward the mountain cabin, where a small German Shepherd puppy was waiting for him, alone and scared, he thought maybe Torres was right. Maybe the switch wasn't supposed to turn off. Maybe it was just supposed to find the right targets. Marcus didn't go to the cabin immediately. First, he drove to a 24-hour Walmart on the outskirts of Reno and bought supplies: medical tape, antiseptic, gauze, dog food, a soft bed, toys. He moved through the aisles with mechanical efficiency, a soldier restocking after a mission. At a gas station, he used the payphone, old habits from operating in areas where cell signals were monitored, to call a number he'd memorized but never used. It rang 4 times. "Shepherd's Rest Animal Sanctuary. This is Angela." "I need to arrange a pickup and transport," Marcus said. "Small dog, Chihuahua mix, injured paw, trauma history. Owner is relocating to Arizona and needs the dog to arrive safely." "Are you law enforcement?" "No, but the dog was a victim of abuse. The owner is a domestic violence survivor. She's safe now, but she can't take the dog with her immediately. Can you help?" There was a pause. Then, "Give me the details." Marcus relayed Maria's cousin's address in Tucson. the description of Luna, and wired $300 from a Western Union to cover transport and medical care. "Is the dog safe right now?" Angela asked. "Yes. She's with the owner at a secure location. They'll bring her to your facility tomorrow morning." "Okay. We'll take care of her. Can I get your name?" "No," Marcus said and hung up. By the time he reached the cabin, the sun was fully up, painting the pine forest in shades of gold and amber. He climbed the steps, unlocked the door, and found the German Shepherd puppy exactly where he'd left her, curled in a ball by the cold fireplace, shivering. She looked up at his entrance, her ears flicking forward, her tail giving a tentative wag. "Hey, girl," Marcus said softly. He knelt down, moving slowly, letting her approach on her own terms. She did, her nose twitching as she sniffed his hands, his jacket. She smelled Luna's scent on him, smelled the casino, the trash compactor, the fear and the resolution. And then she did something he didn't expect. She climbed into his lap, curled up against his chest, and went to sleep. Marcus sat there on the floor, his back against the couch, this tiny, trusting creature pressed against him. His hands, which hours ago had redirected violence, now cradled new life. And for the first time since Titan died, he felt the knot in his chest, the one he'd been carrying for 2 months, begin to loosen. "You need a name," he murmured to the sleeping puppy. "Can't keep calling you girl." The puppy's paws twitched, dreaming. "Echo," Marcus decided. "Your name's Echo." Because she was the sound that came after the explosion, the proof that life continued, the mission that came after the loss. He carried her to the couch, built a fire, and let himself sleep for the first time in 72 hours. Not the fitful, nightmare-plagued half-sleep of the last 2 months. Real sleep, deep and dreamless. Outside, the Nevada sun climbed higher, and the world kept turning. But inside Cabin 7, in the quiet and the warmth, a broken soldier and a rescued dog began the slow, painful, beautiful work of healing each other. Marcus woke to the sound of his phone buzzing like an angry hornet. The cabin was warm, the fire had burned down to embers, and Echo was still asleep on his chest, snoring softly. He checked the screen. 7 missed calls. 3 from Torres. 4 from a number he didn't recognize. He answered the next call on the first ring. "Kane." "Marcus, it's Torres. Listen, man, we got a problem." Marcus sat up carefully, settling Echo onto the couch. "Talk to me." "Your casino friend, Victor Castellano? He's connected. Not just rich guy connected. Connected. His cousin is Anthony Castellano, runs most of the illegal gambling and loan sharking in northern Nevada, and Victor's been using the casino to launder money for the family for years." Marcus processed this. "You're saying he's mob adjacent, and he's pissed. Word on the street is he put out a call. 10 grand to anyone who can teach you a lesson. 20 if they put you in the hospital." "Street thugs don't worry me, Gunny." "It's not street thugs, brother. It's pros. Anthony sent his personal crew, ex-military contractors, the kind of assholes who got kicked out of Blackwater for being too violent. They're asking around about you, showing your picture. They know you're in the Mountain Rose area." Marcus walked to the window and scanned the tree line. Nothing. Yet. How many? 4, maybe 5. They're driving a black Escalade. "Marcus, you might want to disappear for a few days. Let this cool down." No. "Brother, these aren't weekend warriors. I know what they are," Marcus said quietly. "And if I run, they'll find Maria. She's the loose end. She's the witness who can testify about what Victor did. They'll tie that up before they come after me." Torres was silent for a beat. "So, what's the play?" "The play is they come here, to me, on my ground, and we end this. You can't fight off 5 contractors alone, Marcus, even you. I won't be fighting, I'll be defending. There's a difference." Marcus looked at Echo, still sleeping peacefully. "Can you get word to Maria? Tell her to stay off social media, stay off her phone, don't contact anyone from Reno." "Already done. I got a buddy in the Marshal Service who owed me a favor. She's in a safe house in Tucson until this blows over." "Good." Marcus paused. "Gunny, thanks for everything." "You'd do the same for me, brother. You have done the same. Just don't die, okay? I've been to too many funerals." The call ended. Marcus stood at the window for a long time, watching the forest, running calculations. The cabin was defensible, but not ideal. One road in, limited sight lines, too many approaches through the trees. If they came, and they would come, he needed to control the battlefield. He spent the next hour preparing. He moved the propane tanks away from the cabin. He checked the fire extinguisher, cleared the area around the structure, made sure there were no accelerants they could use. He inventoried his resources: a hunting rifle, a Sig Sauer P226, the civilian version of his service weapon, 2 boxes of ammunition, a tactical knife, and a lifetime of training. Most importantly, he had terrain knowledge and home field advantage. By noon, he was as ready as he could be. He fed Echo, took her outside for a short walk, and settled in to wait. The attack came at sunset. They were good. Marcus had to give them that. They'd done reconnaissance. He found the trail camera they'd placed on a tree overlooking his cabin, found the tire tracks where they'd stopped to observe from a distance. They weren't rushing in blind, but they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated the man they were hunting. Marcus had grown up in these mountains. His grandfather had owned a cabin 5 miles north, and Marcus had spent every summer from age 6 to 16 learning these woods. He knew every game trail, every creek bed, every ridge and hollow. Marcus's grandfather had been a Marine, Iwo Jima, Okinawa, the kind of man who didn't talk about what he'd seen but carried it in every deliberate action. He'd bought this land in 1952, built the cabin with his own hands, and taught young Marcus the difference between camping and surviving. "City folk think the forest is peaceful," Grandpa Kane had said, field stripping a rifle while 10-year-old Marcus watched. "It's not. It's a battlefield. Every animal out here is either hunting or being hunted. You want to survive? You learn the terrain, you learn the patterns, you become part of the forest instead of fighting against it." Marcus had learned. He'd spent 15 summers mapping these mountains, learning where the elk bedded down, where the coyotes denned, where the runoff created natural choke points. He'd learned to read the forest's moods, the way the birds went silent before a predator arrived, the way the wind carried scent, the way sound traveled differently in different humidity. When he'd joined the Navy, when he'd made it through Bud-S and earned his trident, he'd realized that his grandfather had been teaching him tactical operations before he knew the term existed. Terrain analysis, ambush positioning, supply line awareness. It was all the same, whether you were tracking a mule deer or hunting insurgents. Now, watching 4 contractors approach his cabin with the confidence of men who'd done this work before, Marcus activated every lesson his grandfather had ever taught him. He knew they'd approach from the east. It was the easiest terrain, the path of least resistance. He knew they'd try to maintain visual contact with each other, which meant they'd stay in open sight lines. He knew they'd be focused forward, on the target, because that's how contractors were trained. Identify the objective, eliminate the threat, collect payment. What they wouldn't expect was the forest itself fighting back. Marcus had spent 3 hours that afternoon preparing the battlefield. Nothing lethal. He wasn't trying to kill them, just discourage them. Tripwires connected to cowbells that would announce their position. Branches positioned to snap loudly underfoot. Reflective tape placed on trees that would catch their flashlight beams and ruin their night vision. And, most importantly, a dozen false trails that led nowhere, each one marked with just enough disturbance to look like an escape route. He was herding them, controlling their movement, making them think they were hunting when really they were being hunted. It was the oldest predator trick in the book, and humans, despite their weapons and their training, fell for it every time. When the first camera triggered, Marcus smiled. Not with joy, there was no joy in this, but with professional satisfaction. The trap was working. The prey was entering the kill zone, and he was ready. This wasn't just his territory, it was his childhood. He used that knowledge now. He'd placed motion sensor cameras of his own, cheap hunting cameras from Walmart, but effective, at 3 key approach points. His phone, propped on the kitchen counter, showed him 4 screens of grainy video. At 6:47 p.m., one of the cameras triggered. 4 men moving in a tactical spread through the trees. They were dressed in dark clothing, carrying weapons, 2 with AR-15 variants, 2 with shotguns. They moved well, using cover, communicating with hand. Signals, professional, dangerous, but predictable. Marcus had seen their type 100 times. Contractors who'd learned just enough to be competent, but not enough to be truly elite. They moved like soldiers, but soldiers fighting a conventional war. This wasn't a war. This was an ambush. He picked up Echo, carried her to the bathroom, and placed her in the bathtub with a bowl of water and her favorite toy. "Stay," he commanded, his voice gentle but absolute. Echo whined softly but obeyed, curling up in the tub. Marcus closed the bathroom door, locked it, and placed a heavy towel along the bottom to muffle sound. Then he killed the lights in the cabin, grabbed his rifle, and slipped out the back door. The sun was setting, painting the forest in long shadows. Perfect conditions for what came next. He moved like smoke through the trees, circling wide, getting behind his attackers. They were focused on the cabin. On the light they could see through the windows lights he'd left on, positioned to make it look like someone was home. They didn't think to watch their backs. Amateur hour. Marcus reached the Escalade, parked a quarter-mile down the fire road, engine off, driver's side door unlocked. He could have disabled it, slashed the tires, smashed the distributor cap, but that would trap them here, escalate the situation into a fight to the death. Instead, he did something simpler. He took their keys. Then he melted back into the forest to watch. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more incredible true stories of courage and loyalty. The 4 contractors reached the cabin at 7:15 p.m. They stacked up at the front door, 2 on point, 2 on the sides. Professional formation. They'd done this before. The lead man tested the doorknob. Unlocked. A flicker of suspicion crossed his face, but greed and momentum pushed him forward. $10,000 was waiting inside. They breached in a smooth, practiced movement. Door kicked open, men flowing through the fatal funnel, weapons up, shouting, "Clear, clear," into an empty cabin. No target, No furniture blocking their path. Just an open space with lights on and a fire burning low in the fireplace. "It's a trap," the lead man said. Too late. They'd already committed. Marcus's voice came from outside, amplified by the acoustics of the clearing, impossible to pinpoint. "You're trespassing on private property. You have one chance to leave." The contractors spun, trying to locate the source. Two of them ran to the windows, scanning the tree line. Nothing, just shadows and twilight. "We're not here for conversation," one of them shouted. "Come out and we'll make it quick." "No," Marcus said, his voice calm, almost bored. "You'll leave. Now, or I'll make you leave." One of the contractors, a stocky man with a shaved head and a spider tattoo on his neck, laughed. "You're outnumbered, dumbass, 4-1. Even if you're military, those are bad odds." 4-1, Marcus agreed, "which means I only have to be 4 times better than you, and I am." He proved it 30 seconds later, the first contractor to step outside, trying to flank, trying to get a better angle, walked directly into the tripwire Marcus had strung across the porch. Not an explosive tripwire, something simpler. Fishing line connected to a bucket of cold water and small rocks perched on the porch overhang. The bucket dumped. The contractor slipped on the suddenly wet decking, his weapon clattered away, and before he could recover, Marcus was there. Emerging from the shadows like a nightmare, his rifle butt connecting with the man's temple in a precise, calculated strike. The contractor dropped, unconscious before he hit the ground. One down. The other 3 poured out of the cabin, weapons raised, firing blindly into the darkness. Muzzle flashes lit the clearing like strobe lights. Wood splintered, glass shattered. But Marcus was already gone, circling around the cabin, using their panic against them. He appeared behind them, his rifle aimed at the second contractor's back. "Drop it." The man spun, trying to bring his AR around. Marcus's shot was perfectly placed, low and outside, hitting the weapon's receiver and shattering the bolt carrier group. The rifle exploded in the man's hands, shards of metal peppering his face. He screamed and dropped the weapon, clutching his bleeding hands. 2 down. The remaining 2 contractors, realizing they were being hunted rather than hunting, ran for the tree line, firing suppressive bursts behind them. Marcus let them go. He didn't want to kill them. He wanted them afraid. He followed at a distance, herding them like wolves herd deer, pushing them away from the cabin, away from Echo, away from anything he cared about. They crashed through the underbrush, panicked, abandoning all tactical discipline, and ran straight into the creek bed Marcus had been guiding them toward. The water was only 3 feet deep, but it was ice melt, barely above freezing. Both men plunged in, soaked instantly, their body heat bleeding away. They scrambled out the far side, shivering, and found Marcus waiting. He was standing on a boulder, silhouetted against the rising moon, his rifle lowered but ready. "Your keys are on the hood of your Escalade," he said. "Your friends are zip-tied on my porch. You're going to collect them, get in your vehicle, and drive back to Reno. You're going to tell Victor Castellano that if he sends anyone else after me, I'll stop being nice." "This is nice?" One of the contractors gasped through chattering teeth. "You're alive," Marcus said. "That's nice. Now go." They went. Marcus watched them stumble back through the forest, 2 men carrying their unconscious comrades, weapons abandoned, pride shattered. When their taillights disappeared down the fire road, he returned to the cabin. The damage wasn't catastrophic. Bullet holes in the siding, a broken window, some splintered wood, but it would need repairs. He'd deal with that tomorrow. tonight, he had a more important mission. He unlocked the bathroom door. Echo was still in the tub, trembling, her ears flat. She'd heard the gunfire, the shouting, the chaos. But when she saw Marcus, her tail started wagging. He knelt beside the tub. "It's okay, girl. It's over. You're safe." Echo climbed out and pressed herself against his chest, and Marcus held her, feeling her rapid heartbeat slow, feeling his own adrenaline finally drain away. He'd defended his home, protected the innocent, neutralized the threat without taking a life. The mission was complete. The fallout happened quickly. By morning, the story had spread through Reno's underworld like wildfire. 4 professional contractors, humiliated and defeated by a single Navy SEAL operating alone in the mountains. The contract on Marcus's head was quietly withdrawn. No one wanted to be the next cautionary tale. But, more significantly, Maria Santos, safely hidden in Tucson, had filed a police report with the assistance of Torres's marshal friend. The report included photographs of her injuries, testimony from Rosa the janitor, and, crucially, security footage from the casino's own cameras showing Victor throwing Luna's carrier into the garbage chute. The Nevada Gaming Control Board didn't take kindly to casino owners assaulting employees on camera. An investigation was launched. Within 72 hours, auditors found the money laundering schemes Torres had mentioned. Within a week, both Victor and his cousin Anthony were arrested. The charges ranged from assault and animal cruelty to racketeering and tax evasion. The empire Victor had built on intimidation and cruelty collapsed in days. Marcus learned all of this from a series of text messages from Torres. Victor arrested. Bail denied. Casino shut down pending investigation. Maria's lawyer saying she's got a civil case worth 7 figures. "You did good, brother." Marcus didn't respond. He was busy. He'd spent the week repairing the cabin, filling bullet holes, replacing the broken window. He'd also been training Echo, teaching her basic commands, working on her socialization, building her confidence. She was smart and eager to please, and she learned quickly. On the 8th day, he received a phone call from Angela at Shepherd's Rest. "Mr. Kane, how did you get this number?" "I'm very persistent. Listen, I wanted to update you on Luna. She's healed beautifully. The owner, Maria, has been calling every day. She's found an apartment in Tucson that allows dogs. We're arranging transport this weekend. That's good news. There's more. Maria wanted me to find you. She said she needs to thank you in person. I told her I didn't have your contact information, but if you wanted to reach out..." Marcus looked at Echo, who was chewing contentedly on a rope toy. "Tell her she doesn't owe me anything. Tell her to focus on rebuilding her life." "I'll tell her. But Mr. Kane, what you did for her, for Luna, that matters. People need to know there are still good men in the world." "I'm not a good man," Marcus said quietly. "I'm just a man who did the right thing." "Isn't that the same thing?" He didn't have an answer for that. 2 weeks after the incident, Marcus received an unexpected visitor. He was outside the cabin, throwing a tennis ball for Echo, who had finally learned to retrieve instead of just chasing, when a rental car pulled up the gravel drive. Maria Santos stepped out, looking healthier than he'd last seen her. The bruises had faded, her lip had healed, and there was light in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Luna was with her, wearing a small pink harness, her injured paw fully healed. "Mr. Kane," Maria called tentatively. Marcus set down the ball and walked toward her. "You didn't have to come all this way." "Yes, I did." She closed the distance and, without warning, hugged him. It was awkward. She was barely 5 feet tall, and Marcus was 6'2", but it was genuine. Thank you. Thank you for saving us. Thank you for giving me my life back. Marcus gently extricated himself from the embrace. You would have found a way. You're stronger than you think. Maybe, but I didn't have to find it alone because of you. She knelt down, and Luna and Echo cautiously approached each other, sniffing, tails wagging tentatively. Is this the puppy? The one you found? Yeah. Echo. She's beautiful. Maria watched the two dogs circle each other, the universal dance of canine introduction. Mr. Kane, I wanted you to know, the settlement from the casino, it's going to be substantial. My lawyer says maybe $1 million. I'm going to use some of it to start a nonprofit, a shelter for abuse survivors and their pets, because no one should have to choose between safety and their family. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Not pain, but its opposite. Pride, hope. That's a good use of the money. I want to name it after you. No. Why not? Because this isn't about me. Name it after Luna Maria looked at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face for something she couldn't quite name. Can I ask you something? Why did you help me? You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything. You could have just walked away. Marcus was quiet, watching Echo and Luna play. The question deserved a real answer, not a platitude. 2 months ago, he finally said, I lost my partner. His name was Titan. He was a military working dog, Belgian Malinois, 3 years old, 85 pounds of pure drive and loyalty. He saved my life 7 times that I can count, probably more that I didn't even know about. He paused, the memory sharp as broken glass. We were clearing a compound. He found an IED. He sat, gave me the signal, but there was a second bomb, one he couldn't detect. He stepped on it while protecting me. Died instantly. Maria's hand went to her mouth. I'm so sorry. I came here to figure out how to live with that, how to be a soldier without a partner, how to turn off the part of me that's always scanning for threats, always ready to engage. He looked at her directly. Then I saw Victor throw Luna into that compactor, and I realized I can't turn it off. I don't want to, because if I turn it off, then I'm the kind of person who watches someone hurt a helpless animal and does nothing. So you helped me to help yourself? Maria asked, not accusing, just understanding. Maybe, or maybe we helped each other. You reminded me that there are still things worth protecting, that the mission isn't over just because one warrior falls. There are other battles, other innocents, other chances to do the right thing. Maria nodded slowly. Titan would be proud of you. Marcus's throat tightened. I hope so. I know so, because what you did, saving me, saving Luna, standing up to a monster, that's what warriors do, not because they enjoy fighting, but because they can't stand by when others are suffering. She reached out and squeezed his hand. Thank you for being that kind of warrior. They stood in comfortable silence, 2 survivors finding peace and shared understanding. The mountain air was clean and cold. The sun was setting in shades of amber and gold, and somewhere in the forest, life continued its eternal cycle of struggle and survival and hope. Marcus had come to these mountains broken. He would leave them healing, not healed. That would take time, maybe years, maybe forever. But healing, moving forward, finding purpose in the wreckage, and that was enough. Or after women who survived, but not after me. I was just passing through. Maria studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but you should know, you changed my life. completely. I was drowning and you pulled me out. That's not nothing." "You pulled yourself out," Marcus corrected. "I just cleared the path." They stood in comfortable silence watching the dogs play. Finally, Maria spoke again. "What will you do now? Are you going back?" "To the Navy?" Marcus considered. "Yeah, my leave is almost up. I've got a team waiting for me." "And Echo?" Marcus looked at the puppy. His puppy now, no point denying it, bounding through the grass with Luna. "She's coming with me. I've already started the paperwork. She's going to be trained as a therapy dog for wounded veterans. She's got the temperament for it." Maria smiled. "Of course she does. She learned from the best." They said their goodbyes 20 minutes later. As Maria's rental car disappeared down the mountain road, Marcus felt a sense of completion he hadn't experienced in months. The mission, this unexpected, unplanned mission, was truly over, and he'd succeeded. 3 days before his leave ended, Marcus stood on the deck of the cabin one final time, Echo sitting attentively at his side. The sun was setting over the Nevada mountains, painting the sky in colors too beautiful to name. He'd come here broken, haunted by loss, convinced the only switch he had was stuck in the on position. He'd been wrong. The switch wasn't the problem. The problem was thinking he needed to turn it off. Men like him, warriors, protectors, guardians, didn't turn off. They redirected. They found new missions. They adapted. He'd lost Titan. That pain would never fully heal. But he'd found Echo. He'd saved Maria and Luna. He'd stood against bullies and criminals and won without becoming a monster himself. That mattered. That meant something. His phone buzzed. A text from his commanding officer. "Welcome back, Kane. We missed you. Briefing Monday, 0600. Marcus typed back. Acknowledged. One addition to the team. Therapy dog in training. Her name is Echo. The response came quickly. "Bring her. God knows we need more therapy around here." Marcus pocketed the phone and looked down at Echo. She gazed up at him with complete trust, complete devotion. She was ready for whatever came next. So was he. "Come on, girl," he said. "We've got work to do." They walked inside together, the soldier and the rescue dog, two broken things that had found each other and become whole. Behind them, the sun dipped below the mountains, and the stars began their eternal watch. There are no chance encounters, no random meetings. Every person you pass, every stranger whose eyes you meet, carries a story you'll never know. Some of those strangers carry darkness, but others carry light. Marcus Kane was a warrior. He'd seen the worst humanity had to offer. He'd taken lives when necessary and carried the weight of those decisions. But on a cold Nevada night in a casino's basement, he'd also given life back. He'd reminded a broken woman that she mattered. He'd saved a small dog that the world had deemed disposable. He'd stood up when standing up was the hardest, most dangerous choice. That's what heroes do, not because they're perfect, not because they're fearless, but because they're present. Because when the moment comes, when evil reveals itself and innocence hangs in the balance, they choose to act. This story is a reminder. You don't need superpowers to be a hero. You don't need a uniform or a weapon or years of training. You just need to give a damn. You need to care enough to step forward when everyone else is stepping back. Somewhere tonight, there's a woman who's safe because someone intervened. There's a dog who's alive because someone refused to walk away. There's a bully who learned that power has limits. And there's a warrior who remembered why he picked up the sword in the first place. To the real-life service members and their K-9 partners, thank you. You run toward danger while others run away. You carry burdens we can't imagine. You sacrifice pieces of your soul to keep the rest of us safe. And when you come home broken, you somehow find the strength to heal and protect again. To everyone else, be the person who steps up. Be the voice that speaks when silence is easier. Be the shield between the predator and the prey. The world doesn't need more people looking the other way. It needs more people who look directly at injustice and say, "Not today, not on my watch." CTA number 3. End of script. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to be reminded that heroes still exist. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and let us know in the comments. What was your favorite moment? Was it Echo finding her purpose, Maria's courage to rebuild, or the moment Marcus stood up to Victor? We read every comment. God bless, and see you in the next story.